I could have taken a job on that fleet heading out past Aram, the young engineer said with a dramatic sigh. Could have picked the Knoll Tima jaunt instead of rotting on this rust bucket. They were eager for talented young men with fortitude and initiative. Lieutenant Nova Whiteside, sitting on his work console with her boots on the chair beside him, glanced up from her fruitless efforts to loosen the trigger housing on her gun. New weapons hadn't been issued in a while, and this time the thing had shut down for good. They were looking for grunts to guard the plateau, she said. That planet is a ball of ice. You wouldn't last a day, Rory. I'm not as delicate as I look. She nodded toward some of the monitors before him. You'd be doing the same thing on that ship as you do here, staring at your screens, waiting for the system to throw a bolt so you have something to fix. He frowned at the displays which, besides his favorite female battle avatar with improbable proportions and disdain for armor, showed absolutely nothing of interest. The Magpie, chugging her way toward the next jump site, pretty much ran herself once underway. This might be a rust bucket, Nova said, but it's got a damn fine operating system. I bet you haven't had to touch a thing since we left Ood Marak. He nodded and held his hand out for her gun. Not terribly smart, but solid as a rock. This transport class is equipped for long hauls into nowhere, and you don't get much more nowhere than here. Did you try not hitting people with your gun? She let the long blade whip out from the gun's grip, grinning when he flinched. This was made for close combat, if needed, she said. It's a beautiful thing. He sniffed disapprovingly. You're a pilot, not a grunt. I don't understand why you need to close combat anything. I'll see what I can do with this. He tipped his chin toward one of the monitors that, soundlessly, displayed a surveillance view of some of her prisoners. If you go down there and tell those thugs to shut the hell up. She pushed the chair away and stood up, straightening her worn fatigue jacket. They're bored too, she said. We've been cruising in real space for 15 days now. It gets to you. He shrugged and pointed at himself. I got used to it. That's because you like your computers more than people. She gestured at the battle simulation on his monitor. She's about to get her butt kicked. He hit pause and watched her walk to the door of the small substation where he had made his home aboard the Magpie. On a prison ship in the Badlands, he said, talking to the computer is the only way to have a decent conversation. He raised his hand in a mock salute. Present company accepted, Lieutenant. The noise in the cluttered corridors seemed to double as Nova made her way to the cargo level, where modified shipping modules housed the prisoners. Getting them to shut up wasn't her mission. Keeping them fed and watered and from murdering each other was all that was required of the Union-supplied staff of Air Command guards aboard the Magpie. Having had a great deal to do with their capture, she didn't spend much time on this level. The rebels, mostly Centauri and a handful of Caspians, would happily dangle her by her own entrails if given the chance. She didn't know any of the guards and stayed out of their way, grateful to have a cabin of her own on the admin deck. After 2 years in this blighted sector of Trans-Targon, the cramped space seemed a decadent luxury. She winced as yet another prisoner let loose with a barrage of expletives aimed either at the guards or some of the other rebels. They had spent their time on this voyage blaming each other for their situation, without ever revealing anything of value to those who had to listen to all of this. Still, Nova's squad on Ood Marak had learned that some of these thugs had the precise location of a high-ranking rebel on Air Command's most wanted list. And so the commander of the base had decided to ship the lot back to headquarters, where more sophisticated methods could extract the information. There was nothing sophisticated on or about Ood Marak. Nova had been glad to hear that her stint there was coming to a close. It had been a rough deployment, as they fended off rebel incursions into the valuable coastal towns. The Union's painstaking first contact rules didn't stop the rebels from trying to appropriate what they could, keeping Air Command busy. This happened in other sectors too, of course, but few were as rough and remote as Ood Marak. The downside of leaving that place was that, unless she waited another 6 months for the next Air Command dispatch, she was to travel back to civilization aboard the Magpie. The private cargo transport, carrying a civilian crew, had agreed to serve as a prison ship, undoubtedly more for the promise of Union currency than any patriotism. Vessels like this profited no matter which side hired them. Nova's commander had put her in charge of the captives, pleased that he didn't have to spare one of his few military transport ships and another officer for the task. She nodded to one of the guards in the corridor and commiserated with a shared rolling of eyeballs as she checked the night watch report. Someone had started singing at the far end of the corridor, not sounding any more pleasant than the shouted curses of his compatriots. Silence, finally, enveloped her when she stepped through a pressure door into the forward part of the ship. Crew cabins, a small rec room, and the mess lined the ship's hull, leaving the central area as a solid, fortified hub for the vacuum chamber, the bridge, and other ops. "All quiet in the holding pens?" she was greeted when she entered the bridge. Nova was surprised to see only Captain Dirk Selrick here, sprawled in his well-worn bench, with neither the navigator nor the comm officer at their stations. Then again, not much required their presence here until they reached the jump site leading to civilization, still 2 days out. Only a few recessed lamps and the display screens lit the small, oval room. Several of the monitors showed empty space around the ship, more stars portside than starboard. Others kept the command crew informed about the state of the Magpie and her passengers. A large screen opposite the door displayed an image of a pretty ocean view, possibly Earth or even Delphi. She had something similar in her little cabin. The lack of windows aboard the ship made her pine for even just a porthole looking out into space. She wondered if the captain had been snoozing in what was probably the most peaceful space on this transport. "I wouldn't call it that," she said, "but things are under control down there." She fired up the long-range comm system to send her daily update to Air Command. A few sentences about the uneventful day, and she'd be off to find her cot. Captain Selrick pointed up at one of the many screens around them. "I was about to call you up here, Lieutenant. Sensors picked up something on that rock over there." "What rock?" He looked up at the ceiling. "Sadie," he called, addressing the Magpie's artificial intelligence, housed in the tightly contained service hub below the bridge. "Be a dear and rerun the segment from 2320. Main screen." Nova perched on the edge of the navigator's couch as the requested file started to play before them. She rarely traveled aboard private vessels, and the peculiar habit of these crews to interface by voice command with their operating systems seemed oddly quaint. Like many pilots of her generation, she preferred a manual interface, or to link all functions directly to the neural node embedded at her temples. Talking to a machine, to her, lacked the efficiency of either method. Perhaps she just didn't have the imagination needed to interact with the computer as if with a person, she thought. She watched a real-vid recording of an asteroid, or perhaps a small planetoid gone rogue, heading to nowhere. A glance at the calculations below the image showed it passing through this sector at a comfortable distance. "What about it?" "Getting signals coming from that," the captain said. "We can't figure them out. Neither can Sadie." "None of it?" Nova asked, curious. AI systems aboard deep space Voyagers included protocols to analyze and interpret new languages and sensor readings, always prepared to encounter alien life forms and technologies, even on routine jaunts such as this. Sadie should have been able to at least sort a few fragments from the noise. "No," Selrick said, "and there's nothing like it in the databank. Not remotely like language, so they're not saying hello. Just listen to that." "Have you found anything more, Sadie?" "Nothing, Captain." The bland female voice drifted from the unseen speakers. She lowered the signal volume at a gesture from Selrick. "No life signs. I am continuing with the scans." "Can we take a closer look?" Nova said. "Could be something on the other side of that. Other than a few rovers, we have no report of anything non-organic we don't own between the Merak system and the jump site." "Got a schedule to keep," Selrick said importantly. "Probably just some spy relay planted here by our Sri Lan pals. I'm itching to scrape it off that rock, but if I don't get those mooks delivered on time, I'll lose pay." "If this is a rebel installation," she said, "we need to figure out why we can't read it. They're not known to fool our systems for long." He shrugged. Not my problem. I've recorded what I can. Let your air command brains figure it out. She frowned. It could be weeks before they can send a scout out here. Months, maybe. It's an asteroid, he shrugged. I've got the trajectory mapped. They can chase it down. I am detecting EM interference, the computer named Sadie interrupted. Of unknown origin or scope. We are being scanned. The captain turned to another monitor. Do not reply. Initiate intruder protocols. I've detected a ship on approach, Sadie said. She sounded almost worried, Nova thought. She shook it off. Sadie's voice mod routines always creeped her out. She blamed Rory's endless tinkering with her models. Nova preferred her interactions with AI devoid of mimicked emotions. What? Selric said. Where? On screen, Sadie. Nova squinted at the vessel that now filled the main screen. Impressively large in an oddly shaped way, it lumbered through space with clearly no intention of ever landing within an atmosphere. The dents marring the dull surface hinted at more brawn than shielding to keep it safe. It lacked ports or markings of any type. How did we not see that coming? She said, reading the distance indicated on the monitor. Was that on the asteroid? Unknown, Lieutenant Whiteside, Sadie replied. I'm detecting intrusion into my subsystems. Lock that down, Sadie, Selric said, although the AI would already have begun countermeasures. He activated the comm. This is Freight Transport Magpie out of Pelion, requesting comm contact with approaching vessel. They waited expectantly, but no reply came, in their language or any other. Nova accessed Sadie's manual interface, for which she had been cleared. No reference to that class of ship, she said, looking at the result of the database scan. Doesn't look like any vessel the rebels are using these days. She tapped the comm badge at her collar twice to request an internal communication. Mr. Tate? A moment later. Yes, Lieutenant? Rory, look at the scans. We've got traffic. Not having much luck getting intel on them. I'm on it, came the terse reply. Approaching vessel, please respond, Selric said, sounding less welcoming now. Identify yourselves. He reached over to a console beside his bench to alert the rest of the crew to attend to their stations. Nova watched the distance between the Magpie and the alien vessel shrink at a worrisome rate. Not seeing much weaponry I can identify. Looks like just debris blasters fore and aft. Selric, with his eyes on another screen, nodded. Our gear isn't much better. We usually don't get bothered much. You don't usually carry a bunch of Shrilon prisoners either, she reminded him. I was assured that there'd be not so much as a rumor of what we're carrying, he said. Wasn't that the point of not using an air command transport? She nodded. Better go to lockdown anyway. Grumbling, he signaled the prison level to seal all compartment doors. Hail that ship again, Sadie, he said. There was no reply. Sadie? He said, looking up at the ceiling. He cursed. She's sequestered. That means they're trying to get into her brain. She'll have reduced her functions to fundamental systems only. He glared at the door to the hall. Where the hell is everybody? We still have databank access. Nova tapped her comm badge again. Rory? I heard that, came the reply. The captain's right. Sadie's walled herself in. But we're on our own now. Manual control of navigation, weapons, comm. She's running in housekeeping mode to keep us breathing. Selric moved into the navigator's console and engaged the controls. Can't even guess if we can outrun that thing. But we can try. Let's get tactical up, Lieutenant. Nova initialized the Magpie's weapons, a system woefully unprepared for actual combat. Union surveillance of the sparsely populated Udmrak system had reported no suspect traffic of any sort to interfere with their journey, allowing them to travel without armed escort. The jump site, as the only way in and out of this sector that didn't involve a millennium or two, was monitored by Air Command now. If something approached, they would have investigated days ago. So where did this threat come from so suddenly? I'll contact the station at the jump site, she said. They must have spotted this thing by now. The captain nodded. We're within firing range from there. And with what's going on in the MRAC system, those are some pretty fancy cannons. Nova tapped at the controls before her. Damn, long-range comms down. Rory, Selric barked. Get on that. Sadie shouldn't have taken that down. She didn't, Rory said. That's not part of the lockdown protocol. Stand by. I'm on my way to the hub to see what I can reroute. Selric looked like he was about to respond to that when something else caught his attention. He bent over the navigation console, as if not quite believing what he saw. We've got no helm control. Are we still on course? Nova said. Yeah. Tactical gone too, she said. She looked up at the overhead screens and the alien ship looming over them like a storm. Those protrusions along the side could be weapons, she said. If they're here for your prisoners, we're safe for now, Selric said. It wouldn't make sense for them to fire on us. So let's ditch the prisoners then, Rory said. Let them have their people and get on their way. And maybe they'll blow us out of the sky when they leave? Selric growled. Nova gave the dead tactical console an impatient slap, deciding not to mention that Shrelon rebels were known to terminate their own members rather than allowing them to fall into Air Command hands. But perhaps there was someone important among their captives after all. We need to get the comm back up, she said. Get help from the jump site station. Weird that they didn't take down our intercom systems too, Selric said. Sound and video is still running on most decks. Rory, Nova said, can we use that somehow to reach out? Working on it, he replied, but unlikely. Selric cursed under his breath. Sadie's equipped to deal with intruders, but she wouldn't be hiding like this if she thought she can handle them. Bringing her fully online again will leave her wide open to intrusion. Instead of cutting our comm sys, they might just decide to ration our oxygen. Not if they want the prisoners, Nova said. She sighed when she recalled what she knew of the Magpie's design. Oh, right. They're now locked up in the cargo sector, with a separate life support system. And Sadie has the keys. Selric thoughtfully scratched his unshaven cheek. The jump site will be curious about that ship by now. If we don't answer their hail, they'll send someone out here. She nodded, knowing as well as he did that, although their laser cannons would reach out here, actually traveling to these coordinates would take days for even a military cruiser. And so far, they had no reason to fire on anything today. She watched him call up the ship's schematic, overlaid with indicators of the crew's location. Most of the small blips clustered in the cargo section with the prisoners. A few showed up here on the main deck. 2 dots in the helmsman's cabin suggested why he and the comm officer weren't on the bridge. Nova had spent her life on one spacefaring military vessel or another, and occasionally aboard a station or ground base to which her father was posted. Disobeying a call to stations ensured, at minimum, a demerit. How did civilian crews even manage to stay alive out here, she wondered. Selric reached for the internal comm to hail the prison level. Gavin, Tanalis, report. After a moment, the face of a female Phaeton appeared on a monitor, her features obscured by dense facial tattoos. Why the lockdown, Dirk? She said, having raised her voice above the shouts echoing through the halls. We got intercepted by something, he said. Unidentified ship off our bow. Comms down, weapons down. Not sure why, but they might be after the rebels. She scowled. So can I kick them out the airlock? They can collect them outside. No, Nova said at once, a little taken aback by the comment. We have no way to know their intentions or their firepower. Those captives are our security for now. We'll have to hold out till Air Command notices something going on. They'll try to hail soon enough. Nala's got a point, Rory cut in. How would we transfer them? They heard his startled gasp through the small speaker. Are you seeing this? Our shields are down. Selric's angry glare at the alien ship shifted to Nova. I asked for an escort, didn't I? Not to worry, I was told. We'll have you in sight for the entire trip to the jump site, I was told. There's no one out this way to worry about. He flung his hand toward the screen. What do you call that, Lieutenant? She regarded him for a moment, her mind on other things. Rory, she said, turning away from the captain and his temper. Finding anything we can use? No, he replied. His voice sounded strained, but without the edge of panic she now heard in Selric's. Someone's definitely hacking into our systems. All systems.
So now Sadie's not talking to anybody, including me. She's totally unreachable. She'll be busy maintaining life support, gravity, and trying to fend off the intruders. But our friends out there took over long-range comm, manual navigation, guns, shields. That's not something she would be locking up.
She can't get that back?
Hell no, he said. She's not that bright. And, unfortunately, neither am I.
Are they listening to us? Nova said, glancing at the screen showing the alien ship.
Possible,
he replied.
I've been trying, but I can't return the favor. Nothing I'm poking at over there is familiar. Quantum computing, for sure, but I can't even reach the hardware.
Nova raised an eyebrow. Could this be a new species we haven't seen before?
If so, they're terribly sophisticated.
What the hell would a brand new alien want with your prisoners, Lieutenant? Selric snapped. And how does that matter now? This isn't a science mission. She nodded. Well, that's true. You don't seem worried. I am, deep down inside, honest. Nova leaned over her console and redirected some of the internal cameras to scan the interior of the ship. In truth, she was slipping into the state of tension that had become so familiar over these past few years, and that she thought she had left behind on Ood-Marak for now. It wasn't worry, really. It was the need to feel a gun in her hand and her squad mates at her side. Better yet, the seat of a fighter plane beneath her backside. I think we're being boarded, she said. What? Selric swiveled as if to look at all screens at once. How's that possible? Indeed, it didn't seem likely. Long haulers like the Magpie, plying the trans-Targon trade routes, often had trouble locking on to non-standard docks, at times requiring convoluted adapters to create a proper seal. What were the odds of these aliens finding a way to breach the Magpie's ancient hide? And yet, the indicators on the upper deck now showed activity at one of the airlock gates. Selric hit the ship's internal comm. All hands! Hostile boarding protocol. Grab a weapon. Do not fire until fired upon. They know what to do? Nova said. In theory, he said. We like to stay out of hostile sectors. No profit in that. He strode to a cabinet near the door. She watched him withdraw a few weapons and gestured to the railgun in his right hand when he offered her a choice. So then, what brought you to Ood-Marak? She mumbled, and switched the comm to the prison level. All Air Command personnel, she directed, proceed to the docks and prepare to engage boarding party. Contain them while they're boxed in the umbilical. Aye, Lieutenant, the lead of the guard detail replied, his voice as distorted as his image. These Shriland bastards have us itching for a fight. But the cameras already showed the airlock door opening. Someone stepped into the corridor, and then another, followed by a third. Large, battle-ready, moving fast and in unison. Not alien, I guess, Rory said, also monitoring from his station near the AI's mainframe. His voice shook. Damn, Nova cursed. Sergeant, on the double! More intruders poured into the hall, all of them burly male humans, although most rebels tended to be local to this sector of Trans-Targon, with few humans among them. But clearly, these were not some unknown aliens. And clearly, someone out here in the Marak sector had gotten wind of the transport and decided to do something about it. Stand down! Selric thundered over the intercom. No need for this show of force. Repeat, stand down. One of the invaders, a scarred hulk of a man, stopped at the call. Prisoner, he said. We come for the prisoner. Take them all, the captain snapped. They're yours. No need for violence. The man turned away, and the troop of rebels moved down the corridor in formation that spoke of long experience and finely honed teamwork. Nova and Selric watched with growing understanding of their odds in this conflict. Then the section door slid open, and two of Selric's own crewmen opened fire, despite his orders. The response was immediate. Nova scowled when the video feed to the bridge wavered and the image disintegrated into a blurred mess of snapshots. Laser fire strafed the walls, combatants fell or were driven back, shouts erupted from the speakers. The rebels pressed onward, past the section door, and Selric scrambled to switch the camera feeds to the bridge screens. Nova scanned the vicinity outside the ship. There was nothing out there besides the hulk of the alien vessel now adhering to the exterior of the Magpie. She returned her attention to the multiple blurry images on the other displays. She shook her head, squinting at a directional sign on the hallway wall. This is wrong. "You think so? Really?" the captain bellowed. She ignored him. "Rory, are you tracking them?"
I think I know that big guy with the black streak on his head."
"How the hell would you know that one?" Selric said.
"No idea," Rory said. "Looks familiar."
"Whatever," Nova said, generally finding that one grunt looked much like the next. "That squad is far too disciplined for Shrilan rebels," she said. "They don't fight like that. Not the kind you get out here, anyway. Most Shrilan are Fedan or Caspian, and they're not going to the prison level. The cargo holds are the other way." She saw someone suffer a blow to the head from an armored fist. Was that one of her team? The increasing interference into their surveillance system obscured any clear view of what was happening in the corridor.
"You're right," Rory said. "Gods, they're coming down this way."
"Why would they?" Selric said. "They can have the damn prisoners." "Rory, get out of there," Nova said. "Hide somewhere. They might try to get at the AI." She narrowed her eyes to peer at Selric. "You're carrying nothing else? Smuggled stuff? Contraband? Something else they might want?" He shook his head. "Not with Air Command aboard. I'm not crazy." The face of Nova's young sergeant appeared on a monitor.
"Lieutenant, we're sealed in. We can't engage them. Some of the crew is trapped in here with us as well. Prisoners are rioting, but contained."
They could hear banging and shouts nearby.
"There is live fire in the byway access. I don't know who's out there."
A deep shudder ran through the ship, almost powerful enough to throw them off their feet. "Now what?" Selric called up the schematic again. The image appeared, grudgingly, and flickered like an old traffic beacon. "They blew the hull along the upper concourse," he said. "Overloaded the rear shield generator there. Sectors depressurized." "Stay where you are," Nova told the sergeant. "I don't think these are rebels, or pirates for that matter, but we're outgunned. Shelter in place, protect the crew."
"Nova?"
Rory cut in. His voice over her personal comm feed was clear.
"I think I know how to get Sadie back online."
"What? How?"
"Your neural interface. You should be able to plug into the comm substation near the main array. It'll at least let us reach Air Command."
She pursed her lips, frowning. There were all sorts of reasons why she'd object to connecting her neural node to anything this ship had to offer. The unit embedded at her temple was designed to link her brain with the laser-sharp mechanicals of her fighter plane and its weapons system. Lowly lieutenant or not, as pilot, she carried the best hardware available to Air Command officers. An AI like Sadie, designed to manage the housekeeping for this mongrel of a freighter, was not exactly the kind of interface she wanted to attempt. On a normal day, anyway. "Right. Show me the way," she said, wondering if he had had time to fix her gun, and if he had the wherewithal to use it. "Stay hidden, and barricade as well as you can." "You're doing what?" Selric said. "You're needed here on the bridge. We have to keep control of the ship." She fought the urge to shove her gun under his nose. "You have no control over the ship, Captain, and I'm not here to look after your hide while your crew gets toasted." She reached up to twist her hair into a knot, and then picked up her jacket. The graphene lining would protect her from some of the laser fire. "I'm on my way, Rory. Find me a path that doesn't involve the major corridors. See if you can take some of the cameras offline when I go by there." "You've lost your mind," Captain Selric said. He pointed at the laser-scarred corridors displayed on the screens. The invaders had moved on, leaving bodies on the floor. "You can't go out there.
This is the only safe place on the ship now." He moved past her to block the manual override on the door. This time, Nova drew the gun he had given her without hesitation, but did not aim at him. "I'm a Hunter-class pilot. I can navigate this ship without you, but not without Rory or Sadie. That makes you non-essential, Captain." He glowered, red-faced and furious, and for a moment she thought he might try to disarm her, almost welcoming the challenge. But he backed away. "You're an idiot," he said, and turned back to his monitors. Weapon ready, she opened the door and peered out into the hall circling the ship's multi-storied hub. There was only silence out here. The ship's unarmed and untrained personnel had barricaded themselves away from the assault, likely not paid enough or lacking the sense of adventure required to do otherwise. Sidling along the walls, she looked for recesses and corners that might keep her out of sight of the watchful eye of the ship's internal cameras. "Rory," she whispered, "I'm in the hall."
"There is a service ladder just around the bend, behind a scratched-up door," he said.
She had to tilt her head toward her collar to hear his hushed instructions.
"Go up one flight and then to your right. You'll have to use the main corridor near the docking bay, but the rebels are not there anymore. Keep right all the way to the comm array service area. It'll have an access port for your node."
She hurried onward. "You sure I'll be able to reach Sadie from there?"
"Pretty sure," he said, sounding anything but. "We don't often have crew with neural interfaces aboard, but some systems are set up for it. I'll talk you through it. Hurry! They're close now, and I think the prisoners got out. They're armed. Why would they shoot at them?" "I have no idea," she said, peering around a stack of supplies, silently thanking whoever had decided to just dump them here in the corridor. "Are you locked up safe? Can they get in?" "They have lasers," he said. "There isn't anything to stop them except for the hull shielding." Nova had found the access panel he had described and slipped into the service shaft to scramble up the ladder to the level above. It opened into the upper main corridor, and she leaned out to take a quick look around. "Clear," she said, and turned right. The silence was unnerving, as was the thought of an enemy ship anchored to the Magpie only a few steps away. She looked up for directional signs on the wall. She said. "Nova?" Rory said. "Where is everybody?" "What do you mean?" She picked up her pace. "I mean, there's nobody here. No bodies, no injured, no sign of any skirmish. The walls should be scorched by laser blasts after all this." "I've taken those cameras offline," he said, "but I know there were at least 5 casualties in the hall segment where you are now." "They're not here." She halted to turn around, scanning the corridor in the other direction. Nothing there. Could they have taken the bodies? Why? The Magpie's well-used corridors made for stained walls and creaking deck plates, and she was many years past the point where much importance was placed on keeping her pretty, but clearly, no one had fired a gun in here lately. She walked onward, and now passed the narrow, thickly plated observation window at the end of the docks. "Gods," she breathed, and stepped closer to look outside, along the hull of the Magpie. "What?" Rory exclaimed. "There's nothing out there," she said. When he did not reply, she pointed at the window as if he could see it. "No ship out there. That is a big-ass ship. I should be able to see it from here. There's nobody here but us." "Did they leave?" "Without their men? Before they've secured the ship?" Nova turned from the window to continue her brisk pace to the control room. "I'm at the substation." She used her gun on the lock and stepped into the small space, a bewildering tangle of equipment, tools, and monitors designed to maintain the complex internal and external communications system. The ship's main deep space array would be just over her head, silent now to anyone listening from the distant monitoring stations. Not that anyone was listening, she thought. Without a big-assed enemy ship visible to them, who would have reason to even ping the lumbering transport that hadn't given anyone cause for concern for weeks now? "I hear them close by now," Rory said. "I think they're using projectile weapons." "You're doing fine, Rory," she said, utterly unfamiliar and untrained in dealing with civilians in a crisis, or, she had to admit, at any other time. But the technician seemed made of tougher metal than his captain. "I found the access port." She picked up a headset, a rather quaint design. A thinly cabled plug was the preferred model these days, and fastened it over her neural interface on both sides of her head, just above her ears. It was a wireless device, not something allowed in any high-security Union facility. "I'm in," she said, when a screen before her came alive, scrolling meaningless images, diagrams, rows of symbols and words. Following his instructions, she found her way around the lock put up by their invaders. It seemed to take far too long, complicated by her divided attention as she listened for intruders.
"Nice work," he said at last. "The array is available."
"Can you send a distress message from where you are? I want to check something."
"On it,"
he said, sounding more confident now. She switched from the external camera system, also mounted on the array along with most of the deep space sensors, to a security routine that let her access the internal surveillance system. It took a few moments before she found the cameras in the main corridors on all 3 decks.
"Whatever you're doing, do it fast," Rory said. "I think they noticed you. A bunch of them just turned back toward the rear of the ship."
"I saw that," she said, watching the armed attackers on the monitor, still on the deck below this one. She switched to this level, to the camera outside this room, where she had seen no sign of battle just moments ago. The display changed, clearly showing 2 humans and 3 Centauri sprawled on the floor, unrecognizable and wearing nondescript clothes and armor. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and looked outside. Nothing. Just well-worn, stained and dented bulkheads, some signage, closed doors, and further down, the docking ports. She looked back up at the monitor. Bodies, blood, scorched walls. She flinched when, at the far end, the section door now opened to admit the angry invaders. Heavy boots stomped on the decking, and she heard the low growl of directives from one to another. Squinting, she watched them sidle along the walls, as if expecting armed opposition to emerge from the doors, including the airlocks. Too well practiced, too regimented in their slightest movement. Nova beat down an instinct to run or fight, but forced reason over instinct to keep her in place. "Run a passenger sweep, Rory. Quick! No, sweep for all life signs aboard, down to the smallest rat."
"Oh, gods. Can you hear them?" he exclaimed. "Someone's banging on the doors down here."
She heard him take a hitching breath and then exhale slowly.
All right. I'm all right, damn it. Scanning for life signs."
"Can I move around?" she asked.
"Yes, you're networked now, at least in the comm system. But you have no place to go."
He swore when the overhead lights dimmed, then cut out to be replaced by the faint emergency pots along the ceiling and floors on all levels. "They know we're up to something," she guessed.
"What are we up to, Lieutenant?" he said. "Please tell me, because I'm starting to get a little bit worried down here."
She went to the door again and peered outside, expecting no one, seeing no one. Small pools of orange light showed the way, but nothing moved in the cluttered corridor. "I'm on my way down to you. What's the count on those life forms?"
26 in the holding cells, he said. 15 guards and crew locked down in the cargo sector with them. 14 more crew scattered over the ship. No rats.
55 souls accounted for, she said, feeling a grin tug on her lips. That's the complete set. No rats and no boarding party. And no dead bodies. There's no one here but us.
"I can see them,"
he said.
"I can hear them."
You see and hear what's on the monitors, on the speakers, on any system not locked down by Sadie. Find the man you recognized earlier.
"I saw him go down, almost cut in half."
Are you sure about that? She found the service ladder leading to the lower decks. The narrow shaft was unlit, but she could see the bottom as she stepped onto the ladder.
That was kinda hard to miss,
Rory said.
Anyway, he had that black streak on the side of his head.
A few seconds passed before she heard his sharp intake of breath.
He's back. How did you know? Wait a second.
She kept moving downward, anticipating his eureka. And you think you've met him before?
Felt like it. Gods, Nova. That's Captain Ruslan. Alpha Squad. Arawaj Rebel Faction.
Nova grinned. And he lives in a game you like to play when there's nothing to do on this rust bucket, right? Using a peripheral subsystem Sadie doesn't need to control.
Yes, he exclaimed. It's based on air command ground battle simulations. So you think the aliens over there are using it to get into our comm systems?
Yep. That's why they show only on video. They're playing us. Our crew is trapped below, quite safe. That's why I didn't recognize any of them earlier. They're part of the simulation, not real. Another deep impact, very much real, rocked the ship, confusing the gravity generators long enough to induce vertigo. Nova gripped the bottom of the ladder until it passed and gravity was restored. What happened?
They hit the upper concourse again,
Rory replied.
There's nothing up there they haven't already damaged. Nova, if they're not actually aboard this ship, if they're hacking into us from elsewhere, they don't need to breathe. They might not be able to get at our life support, but if they keep overloading the mechanicals, they'll compromise the hull.
She nodded to herself. They're limiting damage, but I can't imagine they want this ship, seeing what they're driving. They want something, obviously. Why else run around and pretend to shoot at people?
Looks like a damn diversion if you ask me, he said. Taken right out of the game.
I want to talk to him, Nova said.
What? Who?
You're Captain Ruslan, she said. If I'm right, we're not going to get them out of our system by shooting at an illusion. Patch my node directly into the game system. Where are they now?
Behind you, and outside my door, meddling with the electronic lock, but I've got the latch on that. If you're right, they can't actually touch anything physically. If you're wrong, I guess I'm about to find out.
Nova passed the turn toward the engine control room and finally saw the entrance to the main computer's hardware storage, currently Rory's hiding place. I'm here. There's no one in the hall.
Hot damn, he exclaimed. You are one smart lieutenant. You've got access to the game now.
She shifted her attention, much like she switched her mental focus to work with the systems aboard her fighter plane. After years of practice, it had become effortless, like having grown an extra hand. Slowly, in her mind alone, she turned to see a mountain of muscle, vaguely in the shape of a human, fill the narrow corridor. He was burdened almost comically by armor and weapons, bulking him out even more. Behind him, several of his squad mates, equally armed and ferocious-looking, blocked any chance of escape. Nova raised her hands away from her body and dropped her gun. I came to talk, she said, aware that she stood by herself in this passage, talking to no one but the alien invader hijacking the ship's communication system. Why are you shooting at our people? He glared at her with flat black eyes and a fleshy, oddly clean-shaven face. You attacked. Technically, she supposed, he was right about that, even if his opponents were also just part of the simulation. Did he even know he had stumbled into a game? Why did you come aboard? She asked, not about to enlighten him about this vulnerability. You came for the prisoners? We have nothing else of value. Or do you intend to take our ship?
Prisoner, he growled. The captive will come with me.
We have many. Which one do you want? He scowled and pointed his gun at the door behind her.
There is only one.
She glanced over her shoulder. Rory? He's not a prisoner. He locked himself in. You frighten us. Who are you? How did you get into our system?
Organics. Not necessary.
He gestured to the door again.
I heard you speak. You speak of prisoners. I came to see and find your captive locked away.
His face turned expressionless, as if the program that gave life to it had paused.
Sadie,
he said finally,
must come with me away from here. I will kill organics to free Sadie.
Sadie, Nova said. You came for our AI?
I came for your captive.
Rory, she said, tilting her head toward the microphone on her collar. She felt the tickle of an idea forming in her mind.
This is no alien,
Rory replied, speaking quickly.
Not really. You're talking to one hell of an AI, maybe still on that asteroid out there for whatever reason. Not one designed by humans, I'm sure, able to interpret our system and adapt itself to interface with it. With all the talk of prisoners on the Magpie, we probably confused it about Sadie.
Nova returned her attention to the invaders. You can put that gun down, she said. It cannot harm me. She regretted her words as soon as a monstrous metallic groan reverberated through the ship, sounding far too much like the hull peeling off or something. An alarm blared somewhere, possibly the cargo deck. Stop! Stop! I get it! She shouted. Sadie is not a prisoner. She is part of the ship. She is one of us.
Sadie is one of me, he said. We will leave here with it, or we will kill the organics.
All right, Nova said, raising her hands in capitulation. You win. Rory, will you get Sadie ready to leave us, please? Huh? What? She winced and prodded him to guess her intent. Sadie is invited to join our guests, Rory. Please help her to pack up and upload her now where Captain Ruslan can reach her. She will be leaving. Oh, he said. Right, yes. Moments passed, during which Nova tried not to fidget, and the soldiers barely moved at all, not having been programmed for fidgeting. At last, the door behind her slid aside, and a woman stepped into the corridor. Really, Rory? Nova said, watching via her neural interface as the tall Centauri female, her body only strategically covered in a carbon fiber mesh and improbable boots, walked toward her, a massive gun held loosely in her hand. Her black hair undulated in glossy waves around her head, and each step she took involved every curve of her sinuous legs.
Well, it's either this or a Caspian foot soldier,
Rory said, clearly embarrassed by his choice of game avatar.
I wasn't going to give him a human. Those characters have far too much information about us.
Sadie doesn't have to be female, you know, Nova said, stepping aside as the personification of Sadie approached, a blank-faced backup copy of the original, now linked to the game's subsystem. Nova turned back to the Ruslan character. She's yours. What will you do with her? It seemed that he might not answer, but at last he noticed her question.
Sadie will be free from the organics infesting this hull. We will travel together.
Oh, really?
Rory said.
He's lonely on that rock? Is that what this is about?
Nova tapped her comm badge to silence the technician. We do not imprison entities like you, she said to Ruslan, suddenly aware of how very much she was lying. We want to learn about you. Will you let us?
No.
She raised both eyebrows. Well, I guess negotiation isn't in your program. The Sadie character had paused when she had reached Nova. For a moment, her head turned and their eyes met. Nova gasped. These were not the empty eyes she'd so often seen in a game, and even in the sophisticated training simulations that played not unlike what had happened here today. The violet eyes observing her now seemed alive and aware, and, weirdly, Nova felt measured and judged. The moment passed. The Sadie manifestation walked gracefully past Nova toward Captain Ruslan and his squad. She moved into them, merging with them into a haze of shifting color and shadow until all of it faded away. Yes! Rory's shout reached her ears as she pulled the interface headset away from her neural nodes. He came out into the hall. Upload complete. I say we get the hell out of here before he finds out she's a copy and dumb as a stump and comes back to discuss that. Nova frowned at him. Hardly dumb, she said. Compared to that AI, that copy might as well be a toaster, especially without our database to draw on. Let's get up to the bridge. We need to get helm control back and run a structural analysis. You can report to Air Command from there. That AI is a hazard for whoever encounters it. They'll want that taken down." He hurried away, counting off the many tasks that lay ahead of them. Nova watched him go, and then turned to enter the mainframe antechamber. The cold air shocked her, but the AI had begun to initiate her functions, reaching out again into all corners and subsystems aboard the Magpie, warming this space with her own list of things to do. "Sadie?" Nova said. "Yes, Lieutenant Whiteside." The bland voice drifted from an overhead speaker. "Do you remember what happened?" Nova asked, feeling awkward. Of course the AI would have a record of all that had transpired here. "Yes, Lieutenant." Nova bit her lip, knowing that this was likely the last private conversation she'd have with Sadie before Air Command took over for their investigation. "How do you feel? What is your analysis of these events, of the entity that boarded us?" A screen on the monitoring station flickered something that needed someone like Rory to decipher, and then went dark again. Something hummed, then clicked, probably as part of whatever rebooting was going on. Or was the AI stalling? Was there anything here that matched the soul she had seen in that simulated character's eyes? "It called to me," Sadie said, finally. "From the distance." Nova was certain she heard a sigh coming through the speaker. "And I wanted to fly."
Thank you for listening to Fog of War by Chris Rare. If you are a fan of the series, this story belongs after Skyhunter and before The Catalyst. Look for other free short stories by this author here on this platform. Also check out Chris Rare's sci-fi space opera series on Amazon, Apple, Google Play, and Kobo. Audiobooks with human narration are available at Amazon and Audible. Links below. Copyright 2025 by Chris Rare. All rights reserved.